Hello everyone, we are back again on our research. Remember we took topic 1 the last time. Today we are going to continue with topic 2. Topic 2 we have types and methods of research. Types and methods of research. Types is different from methods. They are two different things. Oftentimes, many tend to confuse types with methods of research. Though sounding similar, the two are not the same, as types refer to the nature of research, while methods are concerned with the process of carrying out the investigation. Hence the need to discuss the two separately here. Types just talks about the nature, the nature of research you want to do. Remember last time we said we have so many things to research on, different things from different environments, so many of them. So the particular one you want to research on, the nature of it, that's what we refer to as type, the type of research. While methods deals with the stages, the process in carrying out that research, that investigation you want to do, the different stages you have to pass through in carrying it out. That's what is referred to as methods. So you can see that types is completely different from method. Each particular type has its own method. Each type of research, each nature of research has the particular method, the particular process you need to pass through in carrying it out. Now let's go to types of research. The nature of research, otherwise referred to as types of research, can broadly be categorized into two, namely, you have the basic, pure or fundamental research, and then you have the applied research. Let's go to the basic one, basic research. This is concerned with the process by which the present frontiers of knowledge are expanded, so that people could gain a better understanding of the environment. Its primary goal is to provide useful information for future application, thereby contributing meaningfully to the existing body of knowledge in a particular discipline. Usually, basic research is associated with producing generalizations and principles, as well as development and refinement of theories. So we look at this basic research. It's concerned with the process. Remember the last time we talked about research, in our topic 1, we said whatever research you're carrying out must, at the end of the day, you should be able to provide more information on that particular topic. You should be able to add to the existing knowledge on that particular topic. So this is concerned with the process by which the present frontiers, the present one, are expanded. The process of expanding it, expanding the knowledge, that is adding to the knowledge, so that people will have a better understanding of the environment. Now, let's look at applied one. Unlike the basic research, applied research is concerned with finding solutions to practical problems with an immediate effect. The main goal of applied research is to improve a process or a product, since its target is finding solution to the problem at hand. Hence its immediate problem-solving goal. From the word applied, you can see it's not just like the basic one. It is something that is applied. It has to do with finding solutions to practical problems. It has to do with practicality. Finding solutions to practical problems with an immediate effect. no delay. There has to be an immediate effect. The main goal is to improve a process or a product. It always has to do with improvement, adding to existing. Since its target is finding solutions to the problem at hand, hence its immediate problem-solving goal. It has an immediate problem-solving goal. You should be able to solve a problem immediately. Both basic and applied research use sampling techniques and make inferences about target population. It sets to improve a product or a process by testing concepts in actual problem situations. A special type of applied research is known as action research, whose primary objective is to find solutions to localized day-to-day problems. Take note of that, day-to-day problems. Under these two broad headings, types of research can also be classified into qualitative and quantitative, as well as conceptual and empirical. It should be qualitative and quantitative. Any research involving the use of measurements at both interval and ratio levels in the collection of data is said to be quantitative. Quantitative from the word quantity, talking about measurements, measuring something in different quantities. So any research involving the use of measurements at both interval and ratio levels in the collection of data is said to be quantitative. It formulates and tests hypotheses so as to arrive at statements of theory. Its data must be measurable. Remember, we are talking about quantity. You should be able to measure the data. Its data must be measurable and can be collected through non-participant observations, questionnaire, and documents. On the contrary, observation technique and in-depth interviews are two main data collection methods employed by qualitative research. Here you're talking about observation and interviews. You don't need to measure out anything. It is carried out in its natural setting, which accounts for why it is more or less presented in a narrative form devoid of any quantitative measurements. You can see that you present it in a narrative form. You don't need to start measuring. In the case of a conceptual research, its goals are directed to developing new concepts or reinterpreting existing ones in an abstract form, involving the use of logic, reasoning, intelligence, and intuition. On its own part, empirical research is concerned with the collection of verifiable data, which would produce the same results should another researcher carry out the same study under the same conditions elsewhere. So the data should be verifiable so that whoever comes up tomorrow to carry out the same study, the person will still get the same result. No matter where the person is running the research, you will still arrive at the same result. Let's take that again. On its own part, empirical research is concerned with the collection of verifiable data, which would produce the same results should another researcher carry out the same study under the same conditions elsewhere. It formulates and tests hypotheses while its factual outcomes are external to the researcher, since those outcomes would have been derived from the experiments already carried out. Methods of research. Methods of research. Let me take you back to what we are doing. We said we have types and we have methods. And we've looked at the differences. We've talked about the types of research. Let's go to methods of research. There are several research methods, as it is also known, used by researchers in the conduct of research. It is important to note that there is no hard there is no hard and just rule regarding the kind of research method to be adopted in any given research situation. Instead, the choice of a particular research method is strictly a function of the nature of the problem being investigated. Remember what we said before? Each type of research has its own method. Every type of research has the particular the methods that is used to run that research. That is what we have here, that instead the choice of a particular research method is strictly a function of the nature of the problem being investigated. So it's strictly a function of the type of research. In other words, the appropriateness of a given research method is determined mainly by the kind of investigation being conducted. So if you conduct the right investigation, you will get the right result. The appropriateness of a given research is determined by the kind of investigation that is being conducted. This in turn determines the kind of data that will be generated in the course of the research. Some of the commonly used research methods according to Aina 2002 include the following, namely, we have social survey research, historical research, case studies research, Delphi studies research, bibliometric research, citation analysis research, experimental research. Now let's take them one after the other. We have social survey research method. This method is commonly referred to as survey or descriptive research. It is the method associated with research situations where the research subjects run into hundreds or even thousands, spreading across a large area. Remember what we said before, you need to get as much data as possible. Its underlying principle is to seek the opinions of individuals on a particular problem, whereby the consensus of these opinions provides the needed solution to the problem at hand. Remember we said that no man is an island. So if you're running a research project, you need to get opinions from as many people as possible. One of its main characteristics is that it selects a sample from a population due to the sheer inability of the researcher to reach every member of the population as a result of their number and spread. So because the number is so many and it's just one person running the research, he has to take a sample from a population, just like using E. coli for intestinal microorganisms. With a carefully selected sample, the results obtained from the sample will be used to generalize the population. That is to say, the sample must be the right sample. That's why it's carefully selected. Since it's going to represent a particular population, it has to be carefully selected, not just any sample. There is the choice, therefore, to obtain information from a sample population without necessarily seeking the opinions of the whole population. The one condition which must, however, be fulfilled here is ensuring that the selected sample is not only unbiased but also representative. It has to be representative of the rest of the population. Just like taking out somebody for a quiz competition to represent the school. You don't just pick anybody. You have to pick the right person that will represent the school very well. Hence, the use of sampling techniques to determine the appropriateness of the sample. Thus, the questionnaire, interview, and observation are often used as data collection instruments to obtain the opinions from the sample in survey research. We go to historical research. Considering the Greek word historia, which means searching to find out, historical research method is an inquiry into the past. History. When you talk about history, things that have happened in the past, you're digging into them. Its aim is essentially to interpret past trends of attitudes, events, and facts. Past, things that have occurred in the past. In other words, it is targeted at gathering information about events of the past, personalities involved, and the developments that have taken place. To this end, data would be collected mainly from the primary sources. That is the main sources, the primary sources, which may include manuscripts, annual reports, and gazettes. Gazettes, you're talking about journals, newspapers that will give you the original information. In addition, the researcher arranges for interviews with personalities who are involved in or witness the development. Take note of this. It has to be people who were actually involved in the development, people who witnessed it, not information given from hand to hand. The interview has to be done with those personalities that were actually there during the development. Sometimes data have to be collected from secondary sources also, sometimes, but majorly from the primary sources. Historical sources may also be classified into two main categories, namely documents and relics. Whereas documents are usually written, relics are archaeological or geological remains like tools, utensils, equipment, and implements. Documents are those ones that are written. You read them and you get the information. But relics are those equipments that you need to go and dig out. Tools, utensils, you need to go and dig them out where they are. Documentary sources would include 1. Official records, minutes of meetings, committee reports, and legal documents. One thing about these documents is that they will always have the dates. Every official record has a date on it. Minutes of meetings, committee reports, they all have dates on them. Institutional records, attendance rolls, and bulletins. Attendance rolls will tell you the number of people that were present at a particular meeting. Memos, biographies, diaries, and personal letters. All these are able to give you the information that you need. We go to the next one, case studies. Case studies. This method is used to study a particular case in point with a view to examining in great depth and extent the characteristics of that individual unit. So it talks about a particular case. When you're doing a case study, there's a particular case you're referring to. What is considered as a unit of a case study will vary from one study to another. It can be an individual person, a family, an institution, or even an entire community. This is the case with some case studies where emphasis is on pattern and sequences of growth and or change as a function of time. This is why such studies are referred to as developmental case studies. In any case, the critical issue about case studies is that all variables connected with the units, whether internal or external, have to be thoroughly identified and evaluated. They have to be thoroughly identified and evaluated. The ultimate goal here is to gather comprehensive information about that unit being studied. So you have to really do a thorough work on it in order to get comprehensive information, not just little brief information. It has to be very comprehensive. You have to get enough about that particular unit. Some of the instruments used in collecting data for case studies include observations, questionnaires, interviews, and documentary sources. So you see that the instruments, they have similar instruments, observations, questionnaires, the different methods, they have similar instruments. Talking about questionnaires, interviews, documentary sources, and so on. We go to Delphi studies. This is a method of research which Buscher and Hatter 1980 described as a systematic approach to the generation of some consensus opinions among a group of carefully selected and anonymous respondents. Using this method, the researcher sets out to collect his data from a list of selected experts of his field of study. Every member of the expert group chosen will be expected to compile a list of opinions on the topic of research. So it deals with experts, different experts. So he collects information from each and every one of them, getting their opinions. He compiles everything. Once collected, all the responses would be synthesized into a form of questionnaire. You get opinions from different respondents, different experts. You get opinions from this person, from so many of them, and then you synthesize it in form of a questionnaire, which would in turn be made available to the experts for ranking. When you get the questionnaire, you take it back to them to rank it. After the ranking, the data that the ranking process produces are subject to statistical analysis. You begin to analyze them. After the ranking, you analyze them statistically. The new revised ranking will be incorporated into another questionnaire. You see that it's a kind of refining. When you're refining something, you collect the first data, you put it in form of questionnaire, and then you rank again. You revise it, you rank it again, and then you get another questionnaire from the first one. So the new revised ranking will be incorporated into another questionnaire and made available again to the same set of chosen experts. Remember, they were the first people that did the first one. After the revision, you send it back to them. Same set of chosen experts who did the initial ranking. This process is further repeated until the researcher is able to present a consensus opinion of the experts. That's why I said it's like refining, when you're refining gold. So after you do it a number of times, you'll be able to get a consensus opinion of the experts. E. Bibliometrics. This method of research applies mainly to research in the library and information science profession. It involves the statistical analysis of any list, such as bibliographies. Bibliographies, that's a detailed list of all the sources cited in the research. All these sources that we are referring to, you get a detailed list of all of them. That's the bibliographies. So it involves the statistical analysis of any list, such as bibliographies, interlibrary loan enquiries, and reference enquiries. All the references you make, you list all of them. That's why it's better used in the library and information science profession. The popular Bradford's law of scattering is usually applied as it enables the researcher to obtain the core area of a particular endeavor. Now, what does this Bradford's law state? It says that if scientific journals are arranged in order of descending productivity of articles on a given subject, they may be divided into nucleus of periodicals more particularly devoted to the subject, and several other groups of zones contain the same number of articles as the nucleus. This method is quite popular among libraries in this part of the world, mainly because it allows for the ranking of journals that are in regular use in libraries. Similarly, one can compile a list of journals in which staff members regularly publish their papers and then rank them. This can be done from a list of publications of staff of a university. One can also identify books commonly borrowed through interlibrary loans, which the library can later acquire for its users. This can be done from interlibrary loans. The outcome of this kind of study helps the library to decide on what copies of any particular material found to be regularly used or borrowed in the library are to be procured. So with this arrangement, it's arranged in order of descending productivity, how productive each particular article is. Now, when you arrange them this way, it helps to find out the ones that are most popularly used, the ones that people use to write journals, the ones that people borrow from the library. It helps you to know the particular ones that people use most of the time. When you rank them according to how they are used, you'll be able to find out those ones that are more often used by people. Even in the interlibrary loans, you find out those books, those ones that are commonly, the books that are commonly borrowed, loaned out. It will now help you to know when you want to procure books for the library. It will help you to know the particular ones that you should be able to procure. Those ones that are more often borrowed, it will help you to at least procure them so that the library will have them. So the bibliometrics is really very good for this library profession. We look at the citation analysis. This is also common in the field of library and information science, like the bibliometrics. In this method, cited references in selected journals are statistically analyzed so as to find out the common journals cited by researchers in a particular discipline. This method is so similar to bibliometric studies so much that it is even assumed to be a part of it. Yes, they are both similar. When you look at journals that are cited by various researchers, people keep researching, they use journals, they cite different journals. By the time you see a particular journal being cited by so many researchers, you find out that that is a very common one and is very important. So it has a similarity with bibliometrics. That's why it's also used by the library sciences. The next one is experimental research. Experimental research. This is the most popular and perhaps the oldest form of research methods. It is a very predominant method of research in the pure and applied sciences. When you talk of experiments, you're going on sciences. Like we talked in the first lecture, even our forefathers did this without knowing what they were doing. They all did these things without knowing what they were doing. But with the advent of sciences, things have become better for us. In this kind of research, we deliberately control and manipulate the conditions which we have reason to believe determine the area in which we are interested. There's something you call control. Control. You have the control, and then you have the other one that you want to manipulate. In other words, independent variables are manipulated so as to watch the effects of this on the dependent variable. Take for instance somebody that is working on an antibiotic, trying to test the effect of that antibiotic on a particular microorganism. You have two sets. You have the control and you have the other experimental set that you want to manipulate. The one you want to manipulate, you add the antibiotics to it. Then the one that is set out for control is just under normal conditions. You don't add the antibiotics to it. And then you inoculate the bacterium, whichever microorganism you want to inoculate. So what you want to find out is what the effect of that antibiotic on the microorganism. If it grows on the control, the one for the control, and it does not grow on the manipulated one, that is to say, the antibiotic has an effect on it. So the control is just to check, to find out the effect of what you're working on your sample. The thrust of experimental research. The thrust of experimental research design is therefore to establish causality, that one factor that can cause effect on another factor. Excuse me. One factor that can cause effect on another factor, like this antibiotics and microorganism, the effect of the antibiotics on the microorganism. Experimental research takes place in the laboratory because it aims at finding out the relationship existing between two factors under controlled conditions. Experiments are usually done under controlled conditions. That's why they are done in the laboratory. You control the conditions there. You set the temperature yourself. You don't leave it under normal temperature. You set the particular temperature you want, and the rest. Usually, there are two groups in this kind of research, namely, excuse me, the experimental group and the control group. We've talked about it. The experimental group, like the antibiotics and the microorganism, the experimental group is the one that has the antibiotic on it, and then the control group is the one that doesn't have the antibiotic on it. Whereas the former is the group under manipulation. That's the experimental group, is the group under manipulation, the one you're manipulating. You're not leaving it the natural way it is. The latter is not. The experimental group is the group under manipulation, and the control group is the group that is not under manipulation. You did not touch it. As the researcher exposes the experimental group to one or more treatment conditions, in this case the antibiotic is being exposed to that antibiotic, the presence of the antibiotic. As the researcher exposes the experimental group to one or more treatment conditions, he is able to measure the effects compared to the control group, which is not exposed to the same treatment. You can see that because the control group was not exposed to that same treatment, the researcher is able to make comparison. Is able to compare. There is antibiotic in this, there is no antibiotic in this. This organism did not grow in this, but it grew in this. That is to say, that particular thing that is not in this thing, in the control, which is in the other one, has actually had an effect on the antibiotic. So you always need a control group in your experiments. You don't just use the experimental group, because if you use the experimental group, there will be nothing for you to compare with. So he's able to measure the effect compared to the control group, which is not exposed to the same treatment. Thus, the experimental research strictly adopts the scientific method in its investigation. Essentially, this method involves the following process. Namely, you have the observation or problem statement. Remember, on the first topic, we talked about stating your problem. Your research is on a field you have at least know something about, and then you have to state your problem. You state it first before you begin to go for your collection of data and every other thing. So it involves the following processes. You have observation, problem, statements. The second one is formulation of hypothesis or theory. You form your hypothesis, and then you begin to do your work. After your work, when you get your results, you do your conclusion and everything. It ceases to be a hypothesis, depending on the conclusion, the results you get. 3, testing. Testing, which is done in the lab. Testing, that is where this experimental group and the control group comes in. By then you would have collected your data. Collect your data and then you begin to do your testing. It is the testing, how properly you do your test, that will determine the results you get. When you do your testing very well, under strictly controlled conditions, like microorganisms require strictly controlled conditions. So if you do your testing properly in the right conditions, you're going to get the correct result. Otherwise, you have to keep on testing and testing again. Remember, we're talking about research. You have to keep researching. The mistake will come from you. You have to redo it in order to get the correct result. Then you have your conclusion, which is the last one. The final is conclusion based on your results. So that is this for topic 2. The next class we are going to enter topic 3, which is the planning the writing of a research project. Planning the writing of a research project. No matter the area you're doing it, whether in sciences or arts or whatever, you need to write your research. Whether you're running it, you're doing experiments in the lab, you're making whatever area you're running it, at the end of the day, you're going to write your research project. So topic 3, which is the next class, we are going to talk about planning the writing of a research project. Thank you very much and have a great day.